Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain, where I'm down to my last dregs of coffee. I really need to go get a refill, but I have quite a few books still left to review, so maybe after this one I will go make another cup so I can continue on this book reviewing journey. But we are diving into For We Are Many by Dennis E. Taylor, and Ray Porter is the narrator, and it is Bobiverse number 2. So just recently, I decided to dive back into my We Are Legion, We Are Bobiverse series. And now I know I have books 1 through 3 in audiobook already on my Audible that I've had for a while. But I saw that Dennis E. Taylor is coming out with another book called, I think, like Flybot, and it was highlighted on my Audible. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember really liking the Bobiverse. And so, as with the John Scalzi Collapsing Empire series, which has got some sci-fi space opera mixed with humor, fun, wit, satire, and science, I decided to dive back into this series. Now, I'll probably do the first 3 books, and then hopefully in the next couple months, I'll come back and finish up the series. But I wanted to go ahead, since I had this one in the queue, and give it a review for you guys. Now, it's about, let's see, it says it's 311 pages, but it's an audiobook, so why would we have pages? The audiobook is about 9 hours long, so I don't know why we have pages for an audiobook, because I assume that we probably have a paperback. Yeah, the paperback came out in 2017, so okay, it's not just an audiobook. But maybe if we're gonna say audio, then maybe we need to give like hours. I don't know, but let's dive back into the Bobiverse. Bob Johansson didn't believe in the afterlife, so waking up after being killed in a car accident was a shock. To add to the surprise, he's now a sentient computer and the controlling intelligence for a von Neumann probe. Bob and his copies have been spreading out from Earth for 40 years now, looking for habitable planets. But that's not the only part of the plan. That's still one piece. A system-wide war has killed off 99.9% of the human race. Nuclear winter is slowly making the Earth uninhabitable. A radical group wants to finish the job on the remnants of humanity. The Brazilian space probes are still out there, still trying to blow up the competition. And the Bobs have discovered a space-faring species that sees all other life as food. Bob left Earth anticipating a life of exploration and blissful solitude. Instead, he's become a sky god to a primitive native species, the only hope for getting humanity to a new home, and possibly the only thing that can prevent every living thing in the local sphere from ending up as dinner. So, this is, of course, book number 2, and so 100% recommend book number 1 first. You are not going to fully understand what is going on without it. This, in my personal opinion, is not standalone, because we need that backstory to understand some relevant bits in this one. And so we are back to hanging out with Bob and his clones. Now, primary Bob has kind of fixated on this primitive native species that he calls them the Deltans. So he doesn't feel like, bringing humanity to this particular planet. It's already got a level of sentience, and I think that was one of the reasons he didn't want to bring humanity here, is because an advanced technological race like humans who have now sent probes into space and all of this sort of stuff would probably not react well to a primitive race. So we're going to leave the Deltans alone. And then there's like the gorilloids, and we've got another like type of creature that he calls hippogriffs, and they're on this planet. Are they thriving? No, not really. But he does intervene on behalf of the Deltans because he kind of sees himself as kind of like their savior. Well, he does. Because in the first book, he helps advance them in technology through spears and bow and arrow and things of that nature. He teaches them kind of how to fight, and he does help kind of, they were having a very small, like they were dwindling in population, but through his intervention, he has now been able to help build up their numbers. Now, he's brought them back to one of their, I guess, OG habitations on this particular planet because they had kind of been moving. Anytime an adversary would move in, they would move, and then they would come and they would move. And so now they had gotten pushed to this one particular area that was not, I guess, a very viable area. So Bob wants them to go back to like their OG area, which is, I guess, better all around. However, it's also got a kind of a big baddie over there, and it's not just a singular, it's just kind of a bigger enemy to have to face off against. And Bob didn't know that. He was not trying to drive them towards like an extinction level event, but the Deltans start to blame him for being why they're suffering. And so ultimately he gets exiled, where he still has his drones, but they just don't see him as much. And from there, he kind of has to watch without too much sneaky intervention. So that's just one of the Bobs. We now have quite a lot of Bobs. And I think one of my biggest kind of issues with that is we have almost too many Bobs starting to come into the picture. From my personal thought, I think we could feasibly focus on, let's just say, 5. We could focus on 5 Bobs at a given time or in a given book. And then in the next book, we can focus on some different Bobs. You know, maybe 4. Maybe 4 is a better option so we can really flesh out the stories of what they're doing. But Riker is still back on Earth, and he is, or back near Earth, and he is trying to help the remnants of humanity who are on Earth survive. There is a kind of a, I guess I'm drawing a blank, but anyway, there is a force on Earth. It's a group of people who really don't want. They're pretty much trying to take people out. They said you had the chance to get out, now you didn't get out, so we're gonna take you all out. And it's kind of like, what the heck? So these people are really crazy. And so Riker has to do his due diligence in trying to help these remnants of humanity on Earth not get wiped out. And so that's pretty difficult because he's got to kind of figure out like who's doing it, how are they communicating, all of this sort of stuff. Well, we also discover that one of the other clones named Homer, oh wait, that was a little bit different. Homer's, like, see, this is where the confusion starts to come in because we have so many clones. And we even have an Australian kind of sentience that's not a Bob. It is a sentience that almost went crazy, but Bob pulled it back from that craziness by helping him learn how to create like the VR habitat that they're able to, because we, I guess, as humans, we need something almost tactile to anchor us in some way. And so I guess that's kind of what happened when this Australian kind of sentience like was put into a, you know, let's just say, you know, a computer. So he had nothing to physically touch, nothing to ground him, nothing to kind of identify with. And so he was starting to go crazy, which is kind of what happened to a lot of the others that they had tried to turn into Bobs. Other, you know, personalities. Bob was the only one that made it for the, let's just say the US team. And so he helps that Australian personality create a VR space where it's a little more grounded. It's able to kind of feel more like itself. Now, it's not 100% like sane, but he's much better. He's much better than he was. But I can't even say that all of the Bobs are really very sane. They are very interesting. And the further away we get from Bob Primary, the further away from like the way he used to think and some of his mindsets and values. Now, one of the other things as well is that Riker is the only one who actually gets to talk to OG Bob's family. He is the one that first was the kind of that liaisoning for meeting his sister's descendants. And so Riker is the one who kind of gets that FaceTime with them. Now, they do see him through that VR kind of setting that he has created for himself, but the technology is coming along in the 40 plus years that they have been out in space. They are starting to figure out, and I say they as in the Bobs, are starting to figure out how to make more advanced weapons, how to make more advanced, I want to call it sonar, but it's not sonar, like technology detecting equipment for their ships, because there is an entity out there in space that seems to have a very intense hive mind. They are one particular entity. They will not diverge from this one particular entity, but they seem to be of hive mind like, and they just go around almost consuming everything, like all of the resources, and like those are like all the minerals and all the metals and all of that, but also the people. They just seem to eat it all. And so Bob is going to have to try to figure out how, because it also seems like this hive mind potentially is a little more technologically advanced than the Bobs have made it so far. So they're going to have to figure out a way to go up against this. I guess they call them them. They call them like them. So that's another thing as well, because that is the one incredibly dangerous spacefaring species that it says that sees all the other life as food in the summary. That is them. We also still have the Brazilian, I guess, AI that seems to still view them as like a target. And so every time they run across them, each side is getting a little more technologically savvy, and it seems as though like the Brazilian mind has maybe a little bit better battle tactics, whereas Bob has really been having to learn that on the fly. He was not a tactician in that respect. He was really more about computer programming. So he's got some skills, but he's not really advanced in war yet, or even in battle. So he's really having to kind of figure that out along the way as well. We also still have quite a few other Bobs in this particular. I mean, heck, we go from like Bashful and Bill and like, gosh, there's just a lot. And so that's kind of probably one of my bigger things is like, maybe we have too many Bobs going on, too many Bobs doing too many different things. Now we do have like Bob like meetings where they all come together in like this pub VR, and they'll play like a game of baseball or what have you, and then they'll all go back and have drinks and kind of decompress and powwow with each other. So that's pretty cool, and I think the interactions are pretty fun because once the Bob clones itself, like all of the clones seem to kind of gain their own personalities pretty quickly, and so they do diverge pretty quickly in what is their priority and what they want to focus on now as kind of a individual sentience. So it's very interesting. There is also the question of Bob potentially can figure out the ability to create more sentient minds to put into clones the same way he was put into clones, maybe without like cutting off the head. But there is the question of, should he? Like, would that be beneficial to continuing this journey of not only technological advancement, but gaining kind of like that wheelhouse of knowledge that these other individuals have. So he's really kind of on the fence about that. There's also creating almost like, Data from Star Trek, where he's an android, and he's got hair and skin, and he doesn't look human. He's a little uncanny, but it's pretty close. He's starting to gain the ability to create some physical form like that to be able to interact with humans. And so that's also kind of interesting as well. We've got a lot going on in this book, so everything is moving very quickly. And it's just going to roll right into book number 3. Now, I'm probably going to have to wait like a week or two to release an episode for book number 3, because I have a lot on my plate for the month of October. It is not only a full calendar, it is also a month where I'm going to have to start packing to get myself ready to move into my new space. But, yeah. I think this series is fantastic for anybody who likes sci-fi, space operas, and all of that sort of fun stuff. It's not Dungeon Crawler Carl, but it's certainly in a similar vein to John Scalzi's Collapsing Empire series. Definitely put it into that one, because I don't know, that's just the vibe I get for it. I just feel like that's where we need to go. Like, in relation to, if you're a fan of this, you should probably read this. But I don't think I spoiled anything for you. I hope I didn't. I don't think there's spoilers, but maybe. Anyway, if this is a series that you're interested in, I hope you'll pick it up and let me know what you think. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you'll consider it. And I will see you guys on the next page. I hope you have a great one. Bye.